Mrs. Sutliff here, and this is our last session for nonfiction text structures, in which I will take an example and show you how to figure out which text structure it is. So our learning targets are, I know the 6 different nonfiction text structures. I can use signal words to identify a nonfiction text structure, and I can use text structure to help me identify the main idea of a text. So what I'm going to do now is read a few examples of each of these different nonfiction text structures, and I will try and model for you how I notice the signal words and also think about the purpose of the nonfiction text and really walk you through how I identify which text structure the text is. So go ahead and follow along with the attached documents as I read to you. This is number 1. I think frogs are the coolest animal because they can be all kinds of colors, they make cool noises, and they have the most interesting metamorphosis from tadpole to adult frog. Right away, I'm just going to stop here. I'm noticing that sounds an awful lot like the persuasive essays that we wrote earlier this year. And I'm wondering if it couldn't be a persuasive text. I'm going to read and really look for some signal words. Frogs can be all kinds of colors. In the rainforest, you can have yellow frogs, red frogs, bright green and blue frogs, and even see-through frogs. Okay, well that kind of sounds more like descriptive, but I'm going to keep in mind that sometimes you can have more than one text structure, and descriptive often goes with other text structures. So I'm going to keep reading. Frogs can make cool noises. The frogs in our classroom chirp quietly. Tree frogs make a loud call that sounds like my wooden noisemaker. Frogs croak loudly, too. Frogs have the coolest metamorphosis from tadpole to adult. It is so neat how frogs start out looking like a fish, but they slowly turn into frogs that can come out on land. That's why I think frogs are cool. Okay, so I'm thinking that it's probably persuasive because of the, I think, and just the repeating of the thesis statement, and I do have what actually looks like a paragraph for each of my 3 reasons here. So I'm pretty confident that that's persuasive. Okay, here's the second article. Frogs come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. They can be more than just green. For example, tree frogs in the rainforest can be yellow, red, blue, and even see-through. Most frogs are just green. Frogs have long legs for jumping. Sometimes people will have frog jumping contests because frogs are really good jumpers. They use their long legs and their sticky tongues to catch food. Tree frogs have sticky pads so they can climb on trees. They still need water, so they will swim in ponds up in the trees. There are plants that have deep crevices where ponds can form. Okay, so I'm noticing a lot of similarities between this one and the last one that I read, which I thought for a while was descriptive because of all of the really interesting details. So I'm not really seeing a whole lot of signal words. However, right here, for example, that seems like a signal word to me. And looking at my blue booklet on page 45, I can see that under description, the first signal words are for example. So I'm pretty sure, because it feels like it's describing different kinds of frogs, and also because of that signal word, that this is description. Or descriptive. Alright, this is the third article. Frogs in the rainforest are going extinct. There are many reasons why frogs are endangered. Their habitat is getting destroyed so that people can make farms. As a result, frogs don't have anywhere to live. Due to the nearby farms using harmful chemicals in their fields, the frogs that are still left are dying. Then, to make it worse, frogs are being taken from the wild for pets, and this makes it hard for the frogs in the wild to maintain their populations. Consequently, there are certain species of frogs that are no longer found in the wild. Well, I'm looking at the overall purpose of this text structure. It seems like it's trying to tell me the reasons why frogs are going extinct. And that makes me think right away of, well, that's a problem. They're going extinct. And here are all of the reasons why. Now, that is slightly different than a problem and a solution. And because there really isn't a solution offered with this article, I would say it can't be problem and solution. So now I'm wondering if maybe it could be, here's the effect, frogs are going extinct, and here's all the reasons or causes. So I'm going to look for some signal words that might match cause and effect. Maybe words like since, because, if, due to, as a result of, so then, leads to, or consequently. Oh, here, consequently. And then I asked us all as a result up here. Ooh, due to. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of those signal words in this one. So I feel pretty confident in saying that this one is my cause and effect. Okay, and notice that the effect was given first. And then all of the causes were listed later. Okay, this is the fourth one, which means we're half finished. Pesticides do some awful things to frogs. The problem with pesticides is they can give frogs extra legs, make it hard for them to reproduce, and even kill them. We need to keep our frogs alive. The solution is to stop allowing farms to use certain pesticides. If farms want to use pesticides, they can still choose from a list of pesticides that don't harm frogs. So then, they can still keep things growing on their farm, but they won't kill frogs anymore. If every farm went organic or stopped using certain pesticides, then we could save the frogs. All right, I'm noticing right away some signal words such as the solution. Oh, and the problem. This one's pretty obvious to me that it's problem and solution. Okay, and the problem is that frogs are dying, and the solution is farmers should stop using pesticides. Number 5, frogs and toads may seem similar, but they actually are more different than they are similar. Unlike the frog, a toad does not live in water. Frogs have webbed feet for swimming, while toads do not. Frogs are good jumpers with long legs. On the other hand, toads have short, stubby legs. Both frogs and toads need water, but unlike the toad, frogs live in the water. Frogs are usually green, but they can be different colors. Toads are usually brown or gray. So right away I'm noticing that I'm comparing frogs and toads. So I know that this must be compare and contrast. However, I want to see if I can find some signal words like similar, different, unlike. On the other hand, that's some signal words. Oh, both. Okay. This is definitely compare and contrast. I'm comparing my frogs and my toads. And it might seem like I'm describing them, and I am, but I'm describing both of them and describing how they are different from each other. Okay? Okay, this is my last one. I know that using the process of elimination, I could just assume what text structure this one is because it's the last one. However, I want to be a more responsible person and really think it through and double check and just make sure instead of just assuming because it's the last one. I might have made a mistake with my other ones. And I know if this one comes out to be, what was it, sequence, I think is the only one I haven't used. If it really is sequence, then I know I probably didn't make a mistake with any of the other ones. So I'm going to read and look for my signal words and just double check. Frogs start out as eggs and slowly turn into adult frogs through a process called metamorphosis. First, frogs hatch as tadpoles. Tadpoles have tails and look more like fish than frogs. Slowly, tadpoles start to grow into frogs. They do this by first growing front arms. Then their tails shrink and shrink until there is nothing left. Finally, when the tail is all gone and the tadpole has grown hind legs too, the frog can get out of the water and live on land. Okay, I'm seeing some signal words that make me think this is sequence. First, then, finally. Also, I'm noticing that it fits the purpose of sequence because it's giving me a step-by-step of how frogs metamorphosis. Yes, there are a few things that sound like descriptive, like how tadpoles have tails and look more like fish than frogs. Obviously, this whole thing is describing what frogs and tadpoles look like throughout the separate stages. But that's an underlying text structure. The main one is the sequence, or might be called chronology. Okay? It's really important that you don't just assume it's descriptive because it's describing things. There could be another underlying or even more important text structure. And obviously this one is trying to teach me the way that a tadpole turns into a frog step by step. So that would be the main idea.